What is going on, Panthers Nation? Carolina Dad here, your host of the Growls One Roar podcast. Today, we are continuing our series breaking down the 90-man roster, focusing our time on the defensive backs for the Carolina Panthers. Lots of question marks, at least in the cornerback room. We're going to start with cornerbacks and then move to safeties, close it out for today. Let's jump right in. Looking at the list, we have DiCaprio Bole, Willie Drew, Troy Hill, J.C. Horn, Dane Jackson, Lamar Jackson, Deshawn Jameson, and Shaw Smith-Wade. Lots of question marks. Is J.C. going to be healthy? Is Dane Jackson going to stand up? He's going to be the next big thing for the Carolina Panthers, make that next step. And or who's going to be behind him, and what happens if these players get hurt? A lot of Panthers fans clamoring for a cornerback to be picked up off the market. Let's go ahead and dissect who is here today. First on our list, we have DiCaprio Bole, number 32, 5'10", 180-pound cornerback out of Nebraska. 12 solo tackles last year. He spent 21 and 22 with Kansas City. Didn't see a lot of playing time. Appeared in 8 games last year. We saw him come alive kind of later in the season. And I do think as you look at this cornerback room, I think he's a guy that's going to end up making the roster based off of the production that we saw last year, as long as he can stay healthy. I put Bole right there. So if you're like creating your 53-man roster projections, I would put Bole in that conversation. Willie Drew, up next, rookie out of Virginia State. Sorry that thing did whatever it just did. 6 foot, 185 pounds. Another player that is being brought in to provide depth, to possibly compete for a roster spot. Next up on our list, we have Willie Drew, rookie undrafted free agent cornerback out of Virginia State. 6 foot, 185 pounds, 23 years old. We've only seen a few of his highlights. If he's going to have any shot in making the Panthers 53-man roster, where we would see this is performance in the preseason and then special teams. Like when we get to the fringe players and a lot of these defensive players, being able to play on special teams is going to be a key component of them being able to make the roster. Next up, we have Troy Hill, who really is our nickel cornerback, coming back on a 1-year contract. Experience in the Ejiro scheme. Number 13, 5'10", 182 pounds. Last year recorded 26 solo tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 1 interception. You can see here, started with the Bengals, went to the Rams. That's where he had experience with Evero, Browns, Rams again, and with your Carolina Panthers. Total tackles last year, 44. I know we talked about the solo, 18 assists, 6 pass deflections, and did have 1 touchdown off the interception. Troy Hill, great asset for this defense in the nickel back position as we look to establish this cornerback room. As long as he can stay healthy throughout the year, I don't have any doubts that we're going to have, or fears that we're going to have a drop-off with Troy Hill this season. Next up, the player that may be under the most pressure on the Panthers, not named Bryce Young, J.C. Horn. Number 8, entering in here to a pretty big year, as he is one, we know he got his 5th-year option picked up, but in a position to really show the Panthers or anyone else in the NFL that he should be playing football, that, hey, maybe these injuries are fluke things, weird things that, are out of his control. He's talked about going back into the same kind of program that he went through when he was at the University of South Carolina and what that can look like this year. 6'1", 200 pounds last year. Again, suffered an injury. I mean, you can look at the game log here. It doesn't take a NFL expert to understand that he's missed a lot of time. 3 games his first year in the league, 13 in his second, 6 last year. Maybe there was a chance if the Panthers were competitive that he could come back a little bit sooner than he did, but he did come back at the end of the year when I thought for sure he was going to sit this thing out and just ride it into kind of like LaMelo Ball, ride it into the postseason, off season, not the postseason because we ain't making the postseason, but ride this into the off season. When healthy, which is a very big when and if circumstance, but when healthy, he can be one of the top 10 cornerbacks in the NFL, no doubt about it. But it's just a matter of how often is he going to stay on the field? If he can have a full season, we saw this with Christian McCaffrey, like we went through this here in the Carolinas, but if we can get a full season out of him, fully productive, fully healthy, he can be a lockdown cornerback that can absolutely strengthen this defensive back room and defense. Looking for a big year, fingers crossed, knock on wood, that J.C. Horn breaks out, stays healthy, and does well. Next up on our list, we have Dane Jackson, 5'11", 180 pounds, coming to us from Buffalo, where he spent last season. Again, Dan Morgan, a big fan of this guy. We're going to look at his stats in a second. He was a former 7th-round draft pick, so very late. I know Dan Morgan did pound the table for him in 2020. Placed on the reserve non-football injury list. That was during the COVID years in 20. Released by Buffalo, signed to the practice squad, signed back with Buffalo, re-signed with Buffalo, and then signed with the Carolina Panthers. Before that, played 4 seasons at University of Pittsburgh from 15 to 19. We won't get into his college career since he has been in the NFL. We can take a look at his stats here. So appearing in more games, although we see a little bit of drop, but going back to 2025 games, 15 total tackles, 13 assists, 13 solo, 2 assists, 5 pass deflections, 1 interception. 17 games in 21, 38 total tackles, 31 solos, 7 assists, 6 pass deflections. 15 in 2022, 48 total tackles, probably his best year yet, 40 solo, 8 assists, 12 pass deflections, 2 interceptions. And then last year, 15 games, 35 total, 30 solo, 5 assists, 5 pass deflections, no interceptions. We can talk all about the cornerback room, and a lot of it can hinge on J.C. Horn's health and how good is Dane Jackson going to be. We saw Dante Jackson leave, and some folks are probably glad. Me, on the other hand, like, Dante Jackson might not have been fantastic, but he wasn't absolutely terrible. We're going to need to see like a medium here with Dane Jackson. We need to see his ability to step up. So, we can talk about pressure all we want with Horn and Bryce Young. Some of these other second-tier guys that, are kind of borderline that will help this team become better and win games, it's going to lie right here with Dane Jackson stepping up to the plate and showing us, hey, yeah, I can be that second cornerback. You can trust in me. You can rely on me. And Evero hopefully will take the most of what he has. And as long as he can remain healthy, that's all we can ask for, right? That's all we can ask for. Next up, we have the Lamar Jackson, although not to be confused with the other Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. Cornerback number 31, 3 years of experience, 6'2", 208, formerly out of Nebraska, spent time on the practice squad. This past year, we can take a look at his overall career. Jets in 2020, 2021, first season with the Jets, appeared in 13 games, 25 tackles, 24 of them solo, 1 assist, 2 pass deflections. 1 game in 21, 5 with the Bears in 22. Then I guess got moved over to Denver where he had 3. And then last year appearing in 1 with Carolina. Personally, not for me. I do think he's still a practice squad player just based off of the numbers. But when you have a cornerback room like we have right now, you get into training camp and anything can happen, man. Any one of these guys can step up because I don't think there's a clear cut outside of Dane Jackson, J.C. Horn, and Troy Hill. Maybe you throw in Shaw since you've got the rookie that was just drafted. Maybe you put him in there. I should say Chow. I always say that wrong. Anyways, you maybe throw him in the mix. Next up, we have Deshawn Jameson, cornerback, number 29, 5'9", 186. Played at the University of Texas. He's another guy that saw playing time at the end of the year. when the secondary was decimated with injuries, cornerback room. Last year, he was a rookie. Now he's entering his second season. He had 8 total tackles, 6 solo, 2 assists, and 1 pass deflection last year. So getting to the bottom of the cornerback room, like I said, with any of these position groups, it's all going to hinge on their ability to play special teams and contribute. Right now, I think if I looked, and I'm not doing my 53-man, but I put Bootle, Jackson, Troy Hill, Horn, got to do Shaw. So it puts us at like 5 cornerbacks. I think 5 cornerbacks can maybe make a case for 6, but hard to imagine that. So I think he's another guy that's going to be kind of fringe right now for us to monitor. Shaw Smith-Wade, number 26, rookie, 5'11", 176, out of Washington State. I've looked at him since he was drafted. He was not one of the cornerbacks I had on my list. No, he was drafted a little bit later. For him, I did talk to Mike Kay of the Charlotte Observer, and if you watch some of his content, you'll see him talking about him as well, or read some of his content. I think he had a pretty good camp. I think he's going to fit better in that nickel position from what we've seen and where he was tried out during the Senior Bowl. He shined a little bit. 2 interceptions, possibly as a replacement for Troy Hill, if or when Troy Hill, next year retires, or maybe this season, maybe he steps up and Smith-Wade's able to get a little more playing time. I do think with your rookie right here that he should make the 53-man roster based off of numbers and just being drafted by this regime. I'm looking for him to have a good training camp and season. I don't know that he's going to elevate into cornerback 2 right out of the gate. Again, look at him for more as a nickel. All right, next up, we'll move in to safeties, starting with Alex Cook. Number 27, 2 years of experience previously with Washington, 6'1", 196. Did get a little bit of playing time last year. We'll pull up his stats. Appeared in 10 games. A lot of these acquisitions came through waiver wire requests late last year. Some guys spending time on the practice squad, but appeared in 10 games, special teams. Big part of that. 7 total tackles, 3 solo, 4 assists. I was looking at some projections, and right now I think a lot of folks have him making the cut right now, which we'll talk about some folks or some players on here that possibly may not make the cut here in just a minute. Extraordinaire, the man himself, Sam Franklin Jr., number 42, 5 years of experience, 6'3", 210. Played at Temple. Let's pull up his stats from last season. Entering in his 5th year, again, had ties with Matt Rule, Temple there. Overall, very solid player. Contributes on special teams. See him playing a little bit on defense as well. Last year, he had that 1 interception return for 99 yards, scored the touchdown. Panthers right now, going back to the 20 season, had 14 games, 21 total tackles, 16 games, 15 total tackles in 21, 1 pass deflection each season. All 17 games last year, in 22, 16 total tackles, and then 17 and 27 total tackles, 18 solo, 9 assists, 3 pass deflections. Talked about the interception. Very good player. Special teams, where he will shine in kind of that backup role at the safety position when called upon. I don't know that he's a true starter at safety right now, but I do think he's someone that absolutely makes the cut on this roster. Next up, we have Jordan Fuller, safety out of Ohio State, brought over in free agency. Let's take a look at his stats from this past year. Someone else that had ties to Evero and the defense, his defense. All 4 of his seasons before here spent with the Rams, like we talked about. So veteran coming out with knowledge of the scheme and defensive style that likes to be played here. So 12 games, 55 total tackles in 2020. That 2021 season, man, it was big. 16 games, 108 tackles. That's a lot for a safety or any defensive back. 58 solo, 50 assists, 4 pass deflections, 1 interception. Missed a lot of time in 22. And then last year, pretty close. I mean, pretty solid season, right? 17 games, 84 total, 51 solo, 33 assists, 3 interceptions, 8 pass deflections. Has knowledge of the scheme. I do think you're going to have Jordan Fuller as one of your starters, paired along with Xavier Woods, now that Von Bell is no longer here. I also have Jamie Robinson, lingering in the background, which we'll talk about in a second. But if I had to rank right now, I'd say Jordan Fuller, Xavier Woods, Sam Franklin are the 3. I think we'll carry 4 safeties, and I think it's going to depend on who can play special teams. Next up, Jamie Robinson, safety, number 22, 2 years of experience. Again, entering his second year, 5'11", 190 pounds, drafted out of Florida State. Didn't see a lot from him last year. 15 games played, 14 total tackles, a lot of this special teams, 10 solo, 4 assists, just not seeing a lot. He's a player that, as we head into camp, I think could be fringe, borderline on the cut line. A lot of these things get dicey, and I know he's in his second year, but the NFL moves fast, and if some of these other guys underneath him pan out, or they can play special teams a little bit better than he can play or contribute there a little bit more, as well as on the field on the defense, he's someone like this staff. Dave Canales, I know that the defensive staff and Dan Morgan were here, but technically don't have ties to him or loyalty to be able to, make a decision to pick and ride with him. We have Nick Scott, safety, number 21, 5'11", 200 pounds, another guy that was brought over. Let's pull up his stats here. Look at the journey that he's been on. This is why it's going to get competitive here. Another guy with experience with Evero. Last year he had 17 games with the Cincinnati Bengals, 46 total tackles, 25 solo, 21 assists. With the Rams, 80 total tackles in 22, 51 solo, 29 assists, 2 interceptions. In 21, 43 total, 26 solo, 17 assists, 2 interceptions there as well. A guy who knows the scheme, spent time with Evero, and now he gets to come in. So again, I've got Nick Scott, Jordan Fuller, Sam Franklin, Xavier Woods. So I think there is a very big chance that Jamie Robinson may not make the cut here. And I think Nick could also make a push for the second starting safety opposite of Jordan Fuller. So it'll be a battle. It'll be a battle in camp. Next up, we got Xavier Woods. Let's pull up his stats here. 8 years, 5'11", 200 pounds, 28. He's bounced around. Cowboys for 4 years, then the Vikings the last 2 seasons with Carolina. Pretty stout years. Last year was probably his best with the Panthers, although, drop in tackles, missed a few games. But 14 games played, 53 tackles, 7 pass deflections, 2 interceptions. In 22, 15 games, 79 tackles, 46 solo, 33 assists, 6 pass deflections, no interceptions, 3 interceptions back with Minnesota. Able to turn the ball over a lot. I think he's played a really key piece in this defense last year. And like I said, I just rattled off the list of probably the 4 safeties that I think we're going to keep. He's one that's on that list, and I don't think I have any doubts about him being able to make this roster. We close it out with a couple of rookies. Clayton Isbell, rookie out of Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina represents 6'2", 220 pounds. Again, it's going to be a competitive room at the safety position this year with the guys that I listed off with the veterans that are already here. So maybe a fringe practice squad player. But hey, hopefully get to see him a little bit in the preseason training camp. And then we have Damani Richardson, another undrafted free agent rookie, 6'1", 215, out of the University of Texas A&M, 23 years old. You can copy and paste everything that I just said for Clayton. Rinse, repeat, put that right in place for Damani Richardson heading into this year as someone that, hey, maybe has a chance at making the practice squad. But anyways, folks, that's going to do it for the defensive backs. Next episode, we'll do linebackers, and then we'll close it out with the defensive line. I guess special teams. So what, 2 or 3 more videos to go. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all have a good one.